Hello and welcome. You're joining me on a beautiful morning. I was going to do this the other day, but I had a headache the next day for some strange reason, so less said about that the better. But anyway, yeah, so over the weekend I decided to test the line between genius and insanity. What happened was effectively is that the tiki heads are doing my head in a little bit. We'll get into that in a minute, but essentially I was kind of like, all right, well, I'll just go and do something else in the garden, take my mind off it for a bit and then just come back and have a rethink after I've cleared my head a little bit. So anyway, we were decorating at the time and I needed to take a radiator off, so as I was looking for a couple of bits in the garage and the system was being drained, I decided, as I found the coil of pipe I'd bought a few months ago, that I'd rig it up because the temperatures are going to be a bit cold. When I say rig it up, I mean my under or over soil heating system, as it were. So yeah, I did that basically on whenever it was, Friday night was it, something like that, Saturday night. So yeah, I'll just go through what I did, and then give you a few results and where we're going from there with it. So just as a little, something slightly different. So yeah, so essentially the actual rig itself is over in this bed, which is, I put it here just because it was easy to run the pipe and it's a bit away from the house, so it's a bit exposed, if you catch my drift. So you can see down there it's just a coil. So what I've done is that if you think on your boiler, yeah, so it's hooked into my central heating system. So if I just simplify it a little bit, if you think you've got your boiler, pipe comes off it, goes through all the radiators, and then that pipe comes back, and everything gets hot. So the one going away from the boiler, i.e. the one with the heat, is the flow, and then the one coming back is called the return. Now if you think about it in those simple terms, if you were to take off every radiator, essentially it's just a pipe running off your boiler, runs around your house and then comes back. That's essentially what this is, except what I've done is I've tapped it into the last part of the return, so i.e. the heat's gone round all the house, heated up all the radiators, and then this is just tapped into the last bit before it goes into the boiler. So what I've done is I've just fed it through my nice sleeving system that goes through to the utility, the 2 meters the other side of this wall. The annoying thing is that you can see the top one there, the sleeve, I accidentally pushed it into the wall, which is really annoying because I've boxed all that in with plasterboard now. So yeah, not my greatest idea. I thought I'd clipped them, but obviously not. So essentially it comes off one of the return pipe for the boiler. It's not completely like that, there's a little bypass, so that 80% of the heat's still going back to the boiler, and this is just nicking off a little bit. But this is worst case scenario in respect of it's got the least amount of heat going through it. I haven't insulated anything, so there's probably a good 20 meters of pipe that's non-insulated. My boiler runs at 55 degrees, so the so the water coming back is going to be about 35 degrees. So it's only at the moment probably only getting to that point out there at about 25 degrees, which if that was going to your radiator, you'd be calling someone like me up to say your radiators aren't working. So this is kind of sorry, this is kind of like how it works. It is least efficient. I can go up from here, I can tweak stuff, I can do this, that and the other. But anyway, if you remember what my sort of thing was that I'm thinking about mainly Cyathias here, because I'm probably going to have maybe 5 or 6 of them. They're not particularly hardy, they're quite big and difficult to overwinter. So I was kind of thinking, because the crown, the thing isn't like a Dixonia, which is 6 foot high, and the thing you need to protect is on the top. The bit you need to protect in the Cyathias is the bit at the bottom. So I thought, this is very rudimentary, so I thought if I ran a few coils of pipe around a plant, i.e. that bamboo cane, and then just put a bit of heat through it, it'll just stave off any frost. And it's like a passive heat, if you see what I mean. It's not like I've got an electric heater and I'm aiming it directly at it, you know what I mean, and drying it out or whatever. This is just, it's kind of, I'm calling it a wet heat. And I can also do other things like maybe bury a couple of coils before I put them in, and a few coils on top so that it keeps the roots sort of warm as well, in case they're a bit vulnerable to it. But essentially the thing I was mostly sort of umming and ahhing about the first time round was a switching system, because obviously I need something out here to sense, because if I'm going to do it, it needs to be automated. Yeah, it needs to just click on when it needs to, not have me, you know, suddenly think, you know, at 1 in the morning, oh, it's 2 degrees, oh, it's -2 degrees, I need to come and switch all this on. You know, like that. I want it just to sense something. So I was having trouble, because ideally I'm going to need something electrical that will send a signal like wireless across to some sort of receiver that will tell it to open up a valve to let water flow through it. So I'm just doing this manually for now. And what I thought actually was, you can just see there, I've got a radiator thermostat, which is, you know, as you would find on your radiators, numbers 1 to 5, but there's also a frost setting on it. So I haven't done it yet, because I was just testing the theory of it as it was. So what I'll need to do, and the trouble is it's getting warm now, so yeah, no, you can thank me for that later, because I was hoping to get a week of testing done at the minus temperatures, but it looks like it's going to warm up, so yeah, it's the way it goes. But essentially what should happen is that if that thermostat is set to a frost setting, then it won't actually open up the circuit, i.e. no hot water will go through it unless it's 4 degrees and below, which is perfect, because that's the temperature that I'm probably going to need to start kicking some heat round. So that actually works really well. If you're interested in how those work, in the valve part has just got a pin on the top with a little plunger that pushes down and up to shut the water off, and in the actual heads there's effectively like a little wax bubble, and it expands and contracts with heat, if you know what I mean. So if you set it to a 3, it'll just set the bubble slightly higher up, and then when it expands, it'll turn the thing off when it reaches a certain temperature, because it'll push the pin down, which pushes the plunger down. But anyway, that's by the by. So anyway, what we've all come for really is the results of it, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. There's a few pros and cons to the system. All I've done is I've just tested this one hook here, which is I don't know, about a foot above the ground, and then this one here, which is probably 2 or 3 foot above, and all I've got is the other temperature sensor over there, just away from it slightly, trying to get as close as I can do to it. Now, when I had it the first night down on this bottom one, it was really impressive. I think that one in the end got down to, I think it was about -3. But this actually, when it got going after about half an hour, 45 minutes, was at about 4 degrees. So that's really good. That's like a 7-degree swing there. This one's not as amazing up high as you would expect, because it's losing the heat as it rises and it's all dissipating. But it still just kept it off a little bit. I mean, this kept it at about 2 degrees, 1.5, but then it wasn't quite as cold the following night. So the thing I need to work out is that whether that sort of extrapolates over the temperatures. So i.e. if that, let's just say that that bottom one, for argument's sake, was at 5 degrees and that one was -3, does it mean that if that went to -5, that would be 2 degrees, or could this one on the left be -8 and that will be 5 degrees? So i.e. does it keep it at 5 degrees all the time regardless of the outside temperature, or is it kind of, you know, it only heats it up 5-6 degrees more than what that temperature is over there on the left? So like I said, unfortunately I've rigged it up too late. I should have done it before December, and then I could have had some real good testing with it. But yeah, so it's one of them. I don't know if I'm going to get to test it now, because it looks like we're going into some warm, in inverted commas, weather. But the theory is sound, and what I'm going to say is that soon I'm going to run out my second line for the irrigation. You've probably seen I've already got one line, and what it is, I'm going to have one circuit of irrigation which will run off that water butt, which will just be off gravity, so I can just open the tap. And what will happen is everything that's below the bottom of that water butt level, so quite high up, I mean that's got to be about 1 metre high, it waters it. And I did actually test it before the cold coming in October, and it does actually work. So I can open that, all the flower beds and anything, so probably that Dicksonia over there, which is only a foot high, I can water all of that. But for stuff that's going to be tall, so i.e. tree ferns, anything that's going to be up high on the waterfall, or you know, if I want to do, like I was thinking of setting up some of those sort of mist sprayers, they're going to have to be under pressure. Now, normally you would put it on the main on your outside tap, but our water around here is quite hard. So what I'm going to do is rig up another three water butts out the front, link them all together, and then I'll go into it more. But essentially, I'm going to put a pump on it inside and put it on a timer, and then that just means that all the things, I'm going to call it the Dicksonia line. So anything that's on the Dicksonia line that needs a bit of pressure, so the sprayers and you know, if it's going up tree fern trunks and things like that, or vertical gardens, it'll just put some pressure but still be using sort of rainwater, if that makes sense. But anyway, the gist of it is I need to run another line out for the irrigation, and when I'm doing that, the pipe is actually pretty cheap. It's the fittings that are expensive, but I'm not going to use that many fittings for this under soil thing. So I'm kind of thinking, for the sake of 20 quid for a 50-metre roll, I mean, I've still got loads of excess, well, not loads, but I've still got quite a bit of excess from the roll I've bought, so another roll should do it. When I'm running the other line out for the irrigation, I can sort of make it follow the same path, if you know what I mean, so I won't be sort of doubling up on the labour. It doesn't quite work out like that, but I can get that in at the same time. Best case is that this time next year I've got, you know, 2 or 3 Cyathias in the ground. I can't overwinter them because they're quite big and they're in the ground. I don't want to dig them up, and you know, I've got this little thing ready just to hook up to the heating, and it will just, you know, the coldest part of the garden, I didn't go through it, but when I first bought the temperature sensors, I had one here on this hook as a control, and then I dotted it around the garden for a couple of nights at a time, just in different spaces. And essentially, in comparison to here, that sort of bed down there where one of the Cyathias is going to go, sort of between the Fatsia in the corner and the Dicksonia, that's about half a degree warmer than this area. Funny enough, you get out to the middle bed at the back, which has got nothing on it at the moment, just the other side of the sort of bark you can see there right at the back fence. That's the coldest part of the garden. That's about -1.5 degrees from this control. And then this is only the middle bed in the centre here with this banana is about 1 degree colder than the control. And then once we get over here, that one over there I think was ½ a degree warmer. The bamboo area was 1.5 degrees warmer, and then these two bits here where I'm possibly going to have a couple of pots with Cyathias in was ½ a degree warmer. So the coldest part of the garden is that back one, the other side of the landscaping bark. So technically what I could do, if my system works with the thermostatic radiator valve, I can put that thermostat in that section, which means that that will be the coldest place. So as soon as that hits 4 degrees, it will fire up, and all the other ones won't be colder than that, if you see what I mean. So it should sort of work, if that makes any sense to you. But yeah, there's obviously pros and cons to these things. It's a bit OTT, and it's more a safety sort of thing. You know, I'll probably still need to do some form of protection for them, but I'm just thinking, you know, just because I've got an inquisitive mind, I'd be quite intrigued to see if it worked. Worst case scenario is it doesn't work, it's a waste of time, and then all I have to do is just chop a couple of pipes and pull them out. You know, it's not going to be massively in there, so I have to dig stuff up and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see how I do, but I was really impressed with how well it worked in that situation, and bearing in mind that I've got a lot to gain. I can make it go out at a higher temperature by insulating pipe work, tweaking the little valve I've got in there to push a bit more heat around and that. So yeah, so that was just something a little bit different. Going on, the tiki heads, you can see I've sort of half mocked it up with what I was saying. The trouble is that I'm not happy with the heights of them. That one on the left is too big for my money, but it is what it is. So ideally what I want is the one on the tiki head on the right. If you can see, that's about the perfect height, because you can see he's got like a little crown on. Yeah, I want the bottom of that crown in line with the top of the top step. Now my only option really is to bury that one on the left like half in the ground, or 6 inches down, so it lines up right. But I can't actually do that where it is because of that fence post. That's all concrete and postcrete down there, so I can't dig down there. So what I'm gonna have to do is swap the tiki heads and dig down on the right hand side, which isn't a massive problem. But I've got that bit of the old the tree fern scenario where you buy a 6-foot tree fern for 600 quid. You don't want to bury 200 quid's worth of it. You know what I mean? Not that was 600 quid, I think that was about 100 quid, so, but it's still 20 quid's worth I'm burying. But it'll have to be what it is because I've got it now. I wanted to get the size down from that, but it had gone, which is a bit annoying because I'd actually gone in there about 3 months ago, spotted it. It was the last one they had in there, so I'd sort of how can I say this, I moved it to the back of the display hoping no one would see it until I was ready to buy it, but obviously someone did, so yeah, there we go. But anyway, if we have a look at these steps, you can see why I actually twisted this bottom one last time. It's because this is one whole big step that snapped when I was moving it. So you can see they've both got one square edge. The top one is on the right, the bottom one is on the left, and then it's got this diagonal, and as that was spun a bit anti-clockwise to sort of face more across the garden, it hid that sort of aspect of it. And when I do it like this, that's just looks a bit weird. Could I make it look good? Possibly, but I think I'm gonna have to stick to plan A, which is twisting that one back around this way, which means that I need a bit more. The trouble is that because this coping stone here is going to be the end of the sort of patio, if you like, it's when I twist it, it's not going to cover the whole step. But I've come up with a slight plan. I'll just run through it quickly. So if you remember, I said I wanted to line up this first row of patio with the lines on this one, and then normally what you would do if you're going to mess it up is have it half and half, if you see what I mean. But the trouble is that the centre line of the garden is actually about a quarter way past this line in the centre, which is why I've lined up those steps as it were. But the next ones I can pretty much do what I want with, and I was thinking, as they're twice, it's a perfect rectangle as I call it, they're sort of twice as wide as they are high. So if I was to cut a 45 down in this corner across like that, I should be able to bump that one up into this section. That will make that finish halfway across this stone here, and then I can do the same with this one, bump it up. I've lost 2 halves, which means I can get a hole in there and they'll be staggered, and then go from that. So I think what my next thing to do actually is going to be actually cut these coping stones, get it all mocked up, get it in there, and then build this bit out here. And what I was thinking of is, rather than set the 45s on this one to marry up with the flower bed, if I do it to marry up with this one, which was a stone shorter in all, from that 45 to that 45, that will bring out the double, the double coping stones out a bit, which might just give me enough to angle that bottom step a bit more across, which means that you can step on it like here, and there'll be some coping stones there. But yeah, something for me to get on with. But I think that's the way to go with it for now, rather than try and build that up so it looks nice and make this work. I think I'll make this work, get it all in there, possibly with the fence posts, and then sort of go from there with it, whether that means chopping it out or digging it down or doing whatever I need to do. That's what I'm gonna have to do. But yeah, we'll get there. And then if I do that, do it all over here, do this section as well, I know that bench is going to be there. So what I'll probably do is dig up a bit of dirt, make that high, and then sort of do it almost like I might get some more of these grey patio slabs, put them underneath the bench as it were, and then do an edging of these coping stones sort of across the front of the bench to sort of put your feet on, if that makes sense. And then that'll work quite well, and hopefully I've got enough to sort of cut in for the edging on the top of this wall. But yeah, I'll have to see how I'm going to cut them. And also, like I said before, if I cut them, the edges are going to be straight, but on these sort of stones, they're actually quite beveled, which means they're just on a slight diagonal, so I'm going to have to sort of cut them on a diagonal and possibly do some form of filing so it's not like a razor sharp edge, or maybe I'll just leave them and let people walk on them and it'll weather them down so they're not so sharp. But bearing in mind I've got like a 4-year-old boy, or he's going to be 4 soon, who's going to be running around like a lunatic when the weather gets better, so this is the main reason I've done this, because if you can see this corner here, that when it's got a big slidey hill there is not great. That will skull someone proper. So yeah, anyway, that's all I've got to say for now. We'll see what I've done by the next time I do it. Still got to do my office, but yeah, we'll get there in the end. Hope you're having a good day.